Welcome to Starcraft 2 Battle Report.
My name is Dustin Browder. I'm the lead designer on Starcraft 2.
And I'm Robert Simpson, a Blizzard esports team member.
We've got a great game for you here today. We have a battle report between Yun-Ho Lee playing as the Blue Protoss versus David Kim as the Red Terrans.
They're going to be duking it out on Lost Temple. The map name may sound familiar. Yes, it has been redone for Starcraft 2.
This is a classic map from the original game that we've done a few additional tweaks to for StarCraft 2 to get some additional game plan. We've got two bases here. We've got David Kim here on the right-hand side as the Red Terrans. And you can see that these players are very close together as the bird flies. There's a very small amount of space separating these players. But if you move across the map, we can get a look at a few of the features which will be key to this game. There's a very narrow choke point leading outside of your base. It's a great place to defend. There's sort of an area here where you can naturally and very easily expand your base to get some additional resources, and another choke point to defend, a wider choke point this time, but still something you can defend against enemy attacks. There is some high ground here that you can sort of hope to use against your enemy one way or the other. You can sneak some forces there. There's also these Zelnaga watchtowers on the map, and you can gain control of these watchtowers and see a huge area of the map. Control of those watchtowers is very key to sort of understanding what's going on the battlefield.
This is a high-yield expansion. It's also blocked by those destructible rocks. It's really, really important in the late game for one of these players to take that over, have some additional resources. It'll often help a player make that final push that they really need to overcome their opponent.
And you can see it is mirrored on all sides. There's another watchtower, and of course there were some more rocks there with some more high-yield resources. So you can expect the players to sort of battle across this whole area of the map. Again, there's another high ground area that you can use to defend your base, or you can use it to make surprise attacks on a player who's trying to defend his natural expansion there. So it looks like the scouts are already on the move from these players, looking to move around some of their early workers on the map to see what the enemy is up to.
Up on the production overlay, we can see that the Red Terran player is currently working on his barracks and his refinery. There we see the scouts just past each other. So now David Kim might have a better idea of where exactly Yun-Ho's camping out. We'll see if he sends his SCV to that 12 o'clock position or not. Meanwhile, back at David Kim's base, he is working on blocking the front of his ramp with his barracks and two supply depots.
This is a very natural thing for Terran players to do, especially against Zerg or against Protoss, to try to block off your ramp there to prevent sort of early attacks with Zealots. Buy your Marines some more time to get in some more shots. And you can see in this case, it's had the extra advantage of also blocking off that probe from getting inside and seeing what it needs to see inside David Kim's base. A little bit of aggressive moves there. It looks like that worker from David Kim's in a little bit of trouble there. He's being attacked by Yun-Ho's probe, and it looks like he's going to have to run for cover there, try to get away from that very, very aggressive probe attack.
Yeah, SCV barely making it away with 20 HP. If that supply depot had taken a few more seconds, it would have been done. We can see that David Kim is going for an orbital command. Very early, he wants to have his resource advantage.
Yeah, there we go. There's the worker trying to get back in the base. You see he lowered his supply depot to let the worker back in. He had a Marine there to drive off that probe. So it looks like David Kim has managed to see what's inside the Protoss base, which is what he needed to do. He needed to scout, and he has done so successfully. Meanwhile, the Protoss right now are blind. They don't know exactly what's going on inside the Terran base. There's not a lot of possibilities at this point, but this only becomes a bigger issue later on. He needs to see what's going on inside so he can make smart tech choices.
In Yun-Ho's base, he has gone for a single gateway and obelisk as well as a cybernetics core. This does mean that he's going to be going for stalkers and warp gates relatively early in the game. They're going to be very effective against Marines.
Yeah, he really needs to get the Stalkers into play. They can really dance around the Marines quite a bit and do a lot of damage. So the Marine player needs to get Marauders on the field to really counteract that threat. And of course, David Kim has seen that cybernetics core. He knows the danger. He knows the possibility. He'll have the counters in play. Meanwhile, the Protoss player still has not seen inside the Terran base, so he's not exactly sure what's going on. You see, the Terrans had control of the Watchtower very briefly there before that Zealot came in and drove that Marine off. And the Marine's just trying to play keep away right now. He doesn't see the danger of the approaching second Zealot, so now he's in a little bit of trouble. He's going to have to try to just run away as fast as he can, taking a hit there as he turns a corner, and here the Zealot is sort of moving around, trying to drive this Marine away, and you can see David Kim being very clever. He's just pulling that Zealot out of action. Oh, a little bit of a misturn there, and he gets cut down.
Back in David Kim's base, he has lifted off his barracks, replaced it with another supply depot, so he can maintain the block on the front of his base. He's also built a factory and used an existing reactor. He had lifted off that factory, landed on it, and built 2 Hellions. This means that we could see some very, very early resource harassing.
Yeah, these can be very, very dangerous against the Protoss. The Zealot in particular can't do a whole lot against them. The Hellions are just too fast. They can shoot, they can back up, they can shoot, they can back up, and the Zealot really just has to run for it. Now try to get back to the safety of his base. And the Stalker's what he needs to get into play there. The Stalker will allow him to chase and shoot up those Hellions, but even the Stalker can't keep up with the speedy Hellions as they just dance right around the Protoss forces, right up into the Protoss base, closing quickly on the probes, and the probes are forced to run for cover as the Hellion close in and just trashing the place with those flamethrowers.
David needs to maintain the pressure. He needs to be chasing those probes just a little bit faster. He's been stopping, using some flame onto the buildings. Oh, and one of his Hellions is taken down by the Stalkers. Stalkers obviously trying to focus down those Hellions. He doesn't want to lose any more probes. I believe that Yunho got away with only losing 3 probes. Very lucky escape.
Yeah, it was really, really good moves by keeping those probes away and keeping his forces pressure up. Of course, David Kim, a little too early maybe with the Hellions. Only 2, not a lot of damage he can do with those. He did do some, and he did manage to do a little bit of harassment, but you can see it didn't really pay off for him in a big way, and it looks like he's lost a little bit of board control is the point. You can see the Protoss just boiling across the map now. You can see their blue just swarming all over the place, while the Terrans, meanwhile, are backed up into their base and are waiting now for the inevitable attack.
The Terran player just finished researching siege mode. This is exactly when he needs it. We see Yunho trying to get up there with the Stalker. Siege tank just barely out of range and going to be barreling down onto those Stalkers, forcing Yunho to retreat.
Yeah, that's the kind of damage he does not want to take right now. He cannot afford to take that kind of damage with just those Stalkers. He needs a lot more forces if he's going to break that choke point at this point. Some interesting moves here from David Kim. It looks like he's going for double command centers at this point. Backed up into his base, he can lift off those command centers as the Terran and fly them to any location on the map, but still, it's a very bold move for this point in the game.
Yeah, well, he really needs to catch up on resources. We can see that Yunho did have a second base already established that's at his natural expansion, so he really needs to play his A game, and he'll likely be expanding to the island expansion since he can lift off his command center.
Yeah, this is what one Terrans commonly do on Lost Temple, both in the original StarCraft and in StarCraft 2, using the Terrans' mobility with their command centers to get access to some high-yield locations. The Protoss do have some strong air units they can use to try to harass those expansions, Void Rays in particular, but, you know, in a game like this where the players are so close together, it can be very difficult for the Protoss player to realize the danger, and in many cases that expansion will simply go undetected.
Oh, and we see some Hellions sneaking all the way back behind Yunho's base. David Kim doing some very good micro with that medevac, lifting up all 4 of his Hellions just as the Stalkers get in range to kill, taking down a couple of probes there. He's trying to take down the Nullifier, but no, he lifts off just in time once again. Yunho doing the best he can to stick on that medevac, but right now David Kim's micro is really just too much for him to handle. Again, David Kim drops 4 Hellions again in his base. 1 is taken down. He just barely gets away, practically unscathed. All he needs is some repair.
Unbelievable. He manages to come in there, raid, harass that economy. That's the kind of economic advantage David Kim needs to stay in this game at this point. He harasses a little bit. He comes back. He repairs up, and he's going to be ready in a moment to do it again. You saw some warp-ins from the Protoss player. They're trying to block this, but ultimately he just wasn't fast enough to deal with that kind of speedy threat. Using the Hellions with their speed, with their area effect attacks, and the flexibility of the medevac really kept him in the game. Now we've got some real danger here. We've got a couple of siege tanks in that medevac. Let's see where those things are going.
This is something that you saw relatively often in StarCraft 1. They would use their dropships in combination with the siege tanks, and I think that David Kim's going for something very, very similar to that, especially with the way that the Stalker fire works. If a Stalker gets off his volley and the Terran player is able to pick up that siege tank again before the volley lands, that means the siege tank's not going to take any damage.
Yeah, it will actually miss, and this is something that really gives the Terrans a big advantage at this point in the game. If he can get those siege tanks to a good position, he can do a lot of damage. And you see the Hellions there harassing those Protoss player, making his Zealots just a lot less effective. And there's the landing position, moving up to a classic location in Lost Temple, getting control of the high ground, even more powerful in StarCraft 2 in many ways than it was in the original StarCraft. If you can't see those units, you can't shoot them, and you can't see in the high ground without some kind of aerial spotting. You can see the Protoss are in a lot of trouble here right now. There goes a pylon, and the probes are forced to run away as the siege tanks just pound this helpless expansion. And here's the Protoss response. An observer, a flyer cloaked, moves into play. The Terran doesn't know the danger. He doesn't know that he's there right now, and it looks like Blink is being researched, which is going to allow the Protoss to get to that high ground and get at those siege tanks.
Protoss player is just biding his time until Blink is finished. He's trying to keep the Stalkers out of the siege tank range. Obviously doesn't want to take any damage without being able to fire back, so Blink is going to finish likely in just a few seconds, and we'll see him use that observer to get sight up on the hill and then blink up and and here it comes, going for the surround on the siege tank, going to be taking them down. We do see some extra splash damage from the other siege tank, actually damaging himself, and now David Kim microing the siege tank. This is amazing.
Right, just trying to get some extra damage off there. He does manage to take some extra damage. He is getting worn down there a little bit, but he's doing a lot of extra damage as he goes. And the siege tank is finally taken out. David Kim making the most out of his units there, really doing a lot of extra damage. An aggressive blink from the Protoss player gets in a few more hits on that medevac, and Kim's harassment here has come to a quick end.
Now, David Kim didn't really kill very many probes there, but he didn't need to. We saw him take down a pylon